This one's a bit scary to me. The title is Why You Should Buy Everything with Credit Cards.
Ordering a coffee and slipping into a daydream. Are you also hearing Jennifer Garner ask,
"What's in your wallet?"
Receipts.
Well, what's in your wallet is very important. And as for all that credit card rewards talk, she might be onto something.
Most people should be able to save at least a few $100s every year just by using the right credit cards.
If you travel as much as Peyton Manning,
Extra night in San Diego.
Morning.
or are a diehard Swiftie trying to save on those expensive concert tickets, as these commercials will tell you, there's a card for everyone. And those cards will save you money. Well, that is, if you have the funds to make the rewards worthwhile.
They could be really useful or they could be dangerous. I think the biggest tip is to know yourself.
Okay, so I think we can end the video now. Thank you for tuning in, guys. I really appreciate it. Know yourself. No, all jokes aside, I think that is the key factor. Know yourself. Personally speaking, I mentioned before, if you've seen any of my other videos, I have in excess of 15 credit cards. And all of them have zero balances on them, and they all remain at zero balances at the end of every month. And that's because I know myself. I know that I am a very frugal person. I'm very debt phobic. I despise it. And I understand that in the economy we live in and the structure we live in, that debt is actually can be a good thing. I use debt to buy property, I use credit cards to buy everything that I buy, and then I pay it off at the end of each month because I know I can do that. I look at that as a tool, but a tool to be used very cautiously. Other people might look at debt as a way to just do things they enjoy, or like they're just not as fearful of it as me. And not saying you need to fear it, but I think a healthy level of fear can be helpful.
Love them or hate them, those plastic or metal cards that can instantly purchase anything from a coffee to a car are no stranger to consumers. More than 80% of Americans own at least one credit card. Every time you pay for something with a credit card, you're borrowing money from the card issuer to cover your purchase. While it might feel like it, it's certainly not free. You then have to pay that money back either in full at the end of the month or over time, with interest.
The average credit card charges about 20% interest these days, so it is a very profitable business.
So, first things first. If you're not in a place where you can pay that money back by the time it's due, experts don't recommend you have a credit card at all.
Paying 20% interest on a balance that you've accumulated, and then you pay interest on top of that. I mean, that's a really big hole that you're continuing to dig, and it's going to be really hard to get out of if you don't pay your credit card balance.
Credit cards require...
I like this. So far, they're not making me as scared as I thought I would be. Essentially what they're saying is credit cards should be used by people who have earned the right to use them. And trust me, I'm not speaking from a position of like I'm looking down on anyone. It took me a while to get to the position where I felt like I earned the right to use a credit card. I don't think that credit cards should be handed out to college students. I don't think that credit cards should be used by people who have a bunch of other debt, whether it be student loan debt, car debt, whatever other kind of debt you might have, personal loans. I think that credit cards is something that should be used after you've paid off all of your other debt and you have reserves and you make a decent income to where you can pay it off at the end of each month.
Approval. Once you're approved, the bank authorizes a credit limit or the maximum amount of money you can borrow. That depends on factors such as your income, your other debts, and how much available credit you have on other cards. But here's the caveat. Whether or not you're approved depends on your credit score. Meanwhile, your credit score is determined by your credit report, the information related to your credit activity you might not have if you don't have a credit card. It's a catch-22.
How do you build your credit history? Well, the simplest thing is really to get a credit card, use your credit card, and pay it on time.
Credit scores generally range from 300 to 850. The higher the credit score, the more responsible you're deemed. Credit scores not only affect whether or not you get approved for credit cards, but also your credit limit and your interest rate on loans, mortgages, and the terms lenders may assign you. Insurance providers, landlords, and employers might also want to do a check to determine your trustworthiness.
If your goals are to buy a house, get a car, get a loan, the first thing that you need to do in order to build your credit history is to get that credit card going.
I don't necessarily know if I agree with that. The first thing you need to do is get a credit card. There's other ways to build your credit.
There are numerous companies in the US that offer a wide range of credit cards. There's the issuers, American Express, Discover, Bank of America, Citi, Wells Fargo, and then there are the networks. They facilitate transactions between the merchants and the card issuers. The four major card networks are Visa, MasterCard, American Express, and Discover. Two of the world's largest card networks, American Express and Discover, are also card issuers. There are standard credit cards, rewards cards, balance transfer, charge, student, business, secured, limited purpose, prepaid cards, and the list goes on. Different options that may or may not be right for you depending on your personal circumstances. Standard credit cards are the most traditional type. They have an annual percentage rate or APR, sign-up bonuses, annual fees, late payment fees, balance transfer fees, foreign transaction fees, and the most exciting, rewards.
Yeah, they have rewards, but what else do they have? Let's see. They have annual fees, they have late payment fees, they have balance transfer fees, they have foreign transaction fees, they have fees that are fees and fees. Credit cards, that's what I'm saying, you have to be careful because if you go down this slippery slope, you're gonna end up in fee land and you probably won't, it'll be tough to get out of it. So people say, oh, I have rewards. I'm going to buy things I'm already gonna buy and I'm gonna get these points back. Okay, well, can you pay it off at the end of each month? Because if you can't, the interest that they're gonna charge you for the things you bought are going to crush the rewards that you earned. But again, I'm not preaching here.
There's actually a whole industry dedicated to maximizing credit card points and miles. Some people love it, and they love going down that rabbit hole and treating it like a game.
Bankrate.com senior analyst Ted Rossman earned more than $1,700 in rewards in 2022. But getting the most out of your credit cards depends on your spending habits. Which perks would save you the most money? So, how do you choose?
If your family spends a lot on groceries, get a card that gives 5 or 6% cash back on groceries. Like, that's a really nice inflation buster right there. Maybe consider a second card that's just a solid flat rate, something like 2% cash back on everything. Most people should be able to get at least $200, $300, $400 a year just by using the right cards.
Rossman says the rewards that get the most attention are often travel related. Flights, hotels, rental cars, access to airport lounges, free or discounted TSA pre-check, priority passes, global entry, or clear to get you through those long airport lines.
I think a really good strategy for a lot of people is one of those transferable points cards, something like Chase Sapphire Reserve or Amex Platinum. Being able to transfer to different airlines and hotels opens up a lot of options. The sort of next level tip is within that, if you find partners of partners, like United's part of the Star Alliance and American is part of One World.
Then there's rewards for dining, groceries, gas, and also complimentary memberships and subscriptions. Big perks for many are extended warranty and...
I don't know about you guys, but for me personally, I keep it simple. I open up a credit card, take advantage of their bonus, whether that's points or cash back, which I prefer cash back. And then after that, I pretty much only used one of two cards and they both pay me a flat cashback fee. Lately, and I'm not sponsored or anything, but lately I've been using a Wells Fargo cashback card. I forget the actual name of it, but it pays a flat 2% on everything. And I know Wells Fargo has their history and it's not the brightest and not the best. But this is a decent credit card and I get a good amount of points back. I think I've actually gotten more back than that guy got back. That's $1,700. This is across all my cards, not including the bonuses. So it's definitely a great hack to use if you're in a place to use it. And if you know yourself, if you know you can actually manage having this free money, because I don't look at it as free money, I look at it as, I don't even know, like a trap, but a trap that I know how to maneuver around. So, but yeah, let me know in the comments what you like to use. If you use a flat fee credit card, a travel credit card, rewards for groceries, or just let me know, I'm curious.
Purchase protection.
A couple years ago, I actually saved $300 on an Apple Watch repair. The credit card covered the replacement.
But according to Bankrate, Americans' favorite credit card reward is cashback.
I think especially now with high inflation, I mean, who couldn't use more cash, right?
Whereas redeeming for merchandise will likely not get you the most bang for your buck. Other rewards include sign-up bonuses, fraud protection, and having the ability to invest your money and take advantage of interest rates.
Actually, really quickly, that's another good point about using credit cards, I will say. It's much more secure. So using credit cards, if you buy something and you get scammed, for example, your credit card issuer or credit card companies most of the time going to give you your money back and then they're going to go fight to get that thing solved for you. Whereas if you use a debit card and you get scammed, that's like you lost cash on the middle of the road. So I will say that's a reason I do love using credit cards, because I have that extra layer of safety added into it, or security, because I know the credit card issuer or the company or whatever is going to fight for me.
Another thing to consider is how much work you're willing to do. Are you that person who's going to tape notes onto your cards to remind yourself which should be used for different types of purchases?
I know some people that have 30 or more credit cards, and they have really good credit and they get really good perks, and they're constantly flying first class for free. Now, that's not for everybody, of course. The average American has about 4 credit cards. But even with 4 cards, sometimes there can be a game element to this.
Having multiple cards and playing that rewards game can get you some substantial sign-up bonuses, like the Capital One Venture Rewards credit card's 75,000 miles, or Inc. Business Unlimited's $900 in cash back.
If you are playing this rewards game, which a lot of people like to do because they like that upfront bonus, you're getting a new credit card and then you close it out, you're losing that credit history. So my recommendation is not to do that.
American credit card balances reached $986 billion in the last 3 months of 2022.
The big fork in the road is whether or not you carry a balance. If you pay your credit cards in full every month, then yeah, I think you should use your credit card for everything because rewards are great. They can really add up over time.
Even though it's simple math, a 2022 survey found that among credit card holders who carry a balance, cashback was more than 4 times as popular as a low interest rate. Meanwhile, a large share of those who owe debt, 40%, don't even know the interest rate for the primary card on which they owe money.
One of the biggest things that we see about the spending of credit cards and those that are using it incorrectly are those that are either from lower income households, those that are uneducated in this, because no one is talking to them about money.
A recent Bankrate survey found that 30% of those without a high school degree didn't redeem their rewards, compared to 16% with a 4-year degree. And the lower an American's income, the more likely they were to let those rewards sit as well. More than 30% of those with annual household incomes below $50,000 left value on the table, compared to about 20% of those with incomes between $50,000 and nearly $80,000, and just more than 10% with incomes of $100,000 or more. Sagement Wealth Managing Partner Ann Tran says culture plays a big part in how people spend.
I grew up in an immigrant family. I wasn't taught about personal finance. You just make as much money as you can and get yourself out and build wealth for yourself.
Okay, that's fine. I'm from an immigrant family as well, and I understand what you're saying. That blows my mind, and I'm sad about that. So what's the point of having the credit card then? Oh, of course. Yeah. So I guess a lot of folks that are in lower incomes, they have to have that credit card in order to make ends meet, because at the end of the month, they don't have enough money to cover all their expenses, so then they have to cover it with debt. That's probably what's going on. And that's unfortunate. And so for them, it's not about getting the rewards, it's about survival. So that's probably what it is. And yeah, they're not taught about it, and they're not doing their research to see, okay, well, I'm using this credit card because I kind of have to. I might as well take advantage of the dollars I'm getting back. Obviously the interest they're paying is more than the rewards, but at least it makes some slight drop in the bucket. But they're not thinking about that, so just hit me. So sad, it's sad.
Tran recommends having 2 credit cards and 3 if you're a business owner. 1 for primary expenses, a second as a backup, and a third to keep business expenses separate. She says there should also be thought going into your credit card limit and your spending ratio.
Let's say you have 1 credit card and you've got a $10,000 limit on there and you spent all the way up to $9,000. That actually will
She's gonna talk about utilization right now.
Lower your credit score because your credit to debt ratio is not good because you've used up most of your credit. So the rule of thumb is, I would say, try to stick around 30% in using what your credit availability is. And so that's why having a second card will give you a little bit of leeway in giving you more credit to spend.
For those with credit card debt, while experts don't recommend you open multiple credit cards and try to maximize your rewards, that doesn't mean you shouldn't work on ways to build your credit so that you can get to that place.
If you have credit card debt, no shame, a lot of people do, about half of cardholders, but you need to put your interest rate first. So maybe seek out a 0% balance transfer card, or stick to the lowest rate card you can find, or just use cash or debit until you're debt free.
There are a lot of cashback rewards cards that do not have annual fees that will give you 1% back on all your purchases, and that is probably the most simple.
Now, let's say you get to a place where you've got some plastic in hand and you're feeling good about those rewards. The work doesn't end there. She says you should continue to reevaluate your debt and credit cards at least once a month.
tracking your finances, whether it's on an Excel spreadsheet or using an app like mint.com, something that will track what all of your assets, all of your debt and liabilities are so that you know where.
This is big. So I used to budget down to the T every month and it got very tedious. So I've stopped doing that. I may get back into it. And I used to use an app called Mint. You may have heard of it. It was purchased by Credit Karma. And you can enter in your major categories and you can get their line item. It pretty much pulls from your credit card or debit card and it breaks down your expenses. You can create categories: food, travel, home expenses, etc. So that's pretty good. But I will say that it surprises me a lot how often people don't know how much money they spend or even how much money they make. And I'm that friend that's the weird friend who will ask you about finances because clearly I'm interested in that, which is why I have this channel. And I'll talk to, and not really my friends because we're all of the similar mind, but we'll talk to people and I'll ask people, hey, what's your financial goals? Because I'm that weird guy. And, I get personal with my questions. Sometimes they tell me to go kick rocks. Sometimes, interestingly enough, people, they like to share and they might ask me questions. I have friends that ask me questions about how to invest, Roth IRAs, etc. And I'm always shocked by the number of people who who don't know where their money is going or coming from. It just comes in and goes out and they don't really know. And they have, sometimes I give them an exercise like, hey, go and check for all of the recurring expenses that you have and cancel the ones you haven't used in more than 3 months. And it shocks me. They'll be like, oh, I forgot that I had Amazon Prime, although Amazon Prime is a great thing to have. Oh, I forgot that I have Hulu. Oh, I forgot that I have this thing. Oh, I forgot to have DraftKings. Oh, I forgot. I'm like, how do you forget? I know every dollar that comes in goes. That's just me. So I think at the minimum, that should be a necessity that everyone should know where every dollar comes in is and where every dollar that goes out goes. So have a framework. Pay yourself first. You get your money. You know that your rent on your mortgage is this much, your utilities are this much. I actually have a budget, I have a spreadsheet that I'll probably share one day, and it breaks things down by fixed expenses versus variable expenses, and it breaks it down by category, percentage. It's kind of a layman's budget, it's not too fancy, and so it's meant to be that way. So it's not cumbersome and overly complicated, and so people don't want to use it. But I definitely think at a minimum we should all be tracking our money.
And if you're racking up those points, use them. Almost a quarter of rewards credit card holders haven't redeemed any rewards in the past year. And that's an improvement from the 31% of those who didn't in the preceding 12 months.
It doesn't get more valuable over time. In fact, a lot of times these programs change their rules in ways that the industry calls devaluations. Like basically it costs more points or miles to get the free flight or the free hotel stay. So use them sooner rather than later, and then cash back too. That can lose value to inflation.
Most people are scared of money, and you shouldn't be. If you know the facts and you understand how money works, it can be really empowering.
There you have it. So it wasn't as bad as I expected. I thought of course it's a catchy headline, but good advice. Essentially know yourself. Be leery about credit cards and if you don't have the money to pay it off at the end of each month. And so some good advice there, how to build credit. She mentioned something, utilization. She didn't say that word, but that's what it is, that debt ratio. Your credit limit to your balance. So there's some good information here. And with that, if you stayed with me this long, I really, really appreciate it. If you don't mind leaving a like for the YouTube algorithm, it really helps. And if you feel so too inclined to subscribe, I really appreciate it. And until next time, make great money decisions.